I hereby call this meeting of the Norwood City Council to order. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. This evening, our invocation will be led by Pastor Ricardo Sabugo. Pastor.
Good evening, everyone. May God bless everyone here today. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be here before you representing the Hispanic community in Norwood and for the opportunity to pray for this meeting today. I want to read two Bible verses. Proverbs 11:11, by the blessing of the upright, the city is exalted. Romans 13:1, let every soul to subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today asking for your blessing to all these present here today. Please give them wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to carry out their duties and make the right decision for the benefit of our city. May everything they do here today and the decision they make bring honor and glory to your name. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Here.
Mrs. Hoover.
Here.
Ms. Royce.
Here.
Mr. Kelsch.
Here.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Here.
Mr. Thompson. Mr. Braden.
Here. We have 6 members present this evening. Moving on to item E, amendment of agenda. This evening, we are adding item L4, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement with Ford Development for up to $218,200 to replace a failed 36-inch storm sewer on Mentor Avenue from Houston Avenue to its dead end and declaring an emergency. Also, we have a letter from the Department of Law, September 13th, 2022, regarding requests to go into executive session to discuss pending litigation. Dear President and members of Norwood City Council, I respectfully request that the city go to vote into executive session to discuss the status of pending litigation at this evening's meeting. Thank you. Respectfully submitted, Keith D. Moore, Law Director. And finally, item I, 1 and 2, both reports of standing committees of council. We will remove those this evening. Mrs. Franzen.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda as stated.
Motion by Mrs. Franzen to amend the agenda. Mr. Kelsch.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kelsch. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelsch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir. 6 members present, voting aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item G, public hearings. Item G1, Norwood zoning ordinance meeting. I'm sorry, I skipped right over that. Item F, minutes of previous meeting, August 23rd, 2022, regular meeting. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. A motion that we accept the minutes as read.
Motion by Mr. Braden. Mrs. Hoover.
I second.
Second by Mrs. Hoover. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelsch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item G1, Norwood zoning ordinance amendments. I hereby open the public hearing for the Norwood zoning ordinance amendment. We have a letter from the Planning Commission dated July 7th, 2022, regarding proposed zoning ordinance amendment 1. On July 6, 2022, the Norwood Planning Commission held a public hearing regarding proposed zoning ordinance amendments. After listening to testimony, the Norwood Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend council approve the attached amendments to the Norwood zoning ordinance. Based on sections 1117.10 and 1117.11 of the Norwood Codified Ordinance, upon receipt of the recommendations of the Planning Commission to the Norwood City Council, shall schedule a public hearing to be set no earlier than 30 days from the receipt of this memorandum. Is there anyone that would like to speak for this? Okay. If not, is there anyone that would like to speak against it? Having heard none, I hereby close this public hearing. Moving on to item H, request to address council. Presentation by Michael Gabbard, Director of the Norwood Rec Center. Current events and recent accomplishments. Mr. Gabbard.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me have just a couple minutes to just stop by and give you all an update on your rec. And let me just start out by saying one of the things we're trying to do is kind of brand ourselves as the rec. Gives us a little bit of a, more upbeat kind of, I don't know what the word is now. It used to be groovy, but I don't think it's groovy anymore. So we try to call ourselves the rec. There's another item that I'm going to bring up here shortly that something else that we're trying to brand as well. But just real quick, our current membership, counting all the different types of memberships that we give, we're at like 931. And we just opened, January 8th was our grand opening, as many of you were there. So we're pretty excited about that. I think that that's a great response from our community. And we even have some that are non-residents that have come and joined, but 931 people and that's singles, families, everything like that. So that's a great number, and we're just a third of the way through the year. So if you don't have your membership, and I'm not going to point any fingers, but there are people in this room, both in front of me and behind me, that don't have memberships.
Really?
Our daily attendance, if I gave you 2 sheets, one is just the whole month of August. You can see that we had a grand total of 2,098 people stop in the rec, and so that shows that we're busy. Our safety service director, Noah, is right behind me. He is someone that has a membership and does frequently come to the rec. And just the other day, he was over and we were talking, and he was sharing about when he comes and works out, how busy he does notice and see that. So that's not just encouraging for us as staff. That's encouraging for our city, and what we have to offer. The other one is year to date, and you can see that we've had just over 10,000 people that pop in. And ironically, it looks like Wednesday is like the busiest day. So I don't know if people were partying the weekend, they just couldn't make it in Monday and Tuesday, and finally they got out and got there on Wednesdays. But I thought that was kind of an interesting stat to look at. Some major accomplishments we finally did have got Civic Rec up and running, which allows you to sign up for the programs that we have. You can do that online, and you can do that by credit card too, which has been a huge hurdle for us to leap over. But thankfully, we were able to work with the auditor and the treasurer's office and the administration to be able to get that done, and so that's up and running. Our indoor pool is currently being regrouted. There's probably less than a handful of pools that is like our indoor pool. meaning it's all tile. The pool deck, the whole pool itself is all tile, and they're all like little 1-inch tiles. So we've had a gentleman in there, he's been in there working by himself, and for the last 3+ weeks, with a little Dremel kind of thing, going around, getting all the grout out of all those little pieces. And now he's in the process of regrouting. And so we hope to have that finished and be able to clean, because it's obviously extremely dusty from all that he was doing, and have all that cleaned and ready to go and start filling the pool, and hopefully our goal is the October 1st. And to kind of get that open again. We've got a lot of people already asking, when are we going to be able to do water aerobics, and when are we going to be able to lap swim? And so we're looking forward to getting that back open. Construction on our new bathrooms. They'll be ADA compliant. There'll be a men's and a women's on the main level there, across from our club room, right on our main level, as well as a ramp on the outside that will bring you right in there. And that should be starting probably next week. We're hoping. He's just waiting, the construction guy's waiting to get a final, make sure he can actually get the supplies in. He don't want to get a job started and then can't get supplies, and we all know how the supply chain's been working. But we're hoping to get that started next week. That'll be a huge benefit as well for that building, to be able to allow people to have his and her bathrooms and be handicap accessible. So that's going to be a great addition to our building. Some happenings this year, as we've broadcasted and proudly proclaimed, that was the 50th swim season for Waterworks Pool. And it all started back in like March. I happened to be over there. We had some work going on, and I happened to look at one of those brass plaques that was mounted on the wall that nobody ever reads, and I read it, and it said it was dedicated in June of 1972, and started counting up. I'm like, this is our 50th year. We got to do something. So we literally had a weekly, some sort of an event weekly, and we tried to have clubs, organizations, 80s night, Pride night, military night, and then we had 3 adult nights where, a big turnout as well, and people really enjoyed those. So we're going to continue that next season. Not all of those events, but we will continue some of the more popular ones that people enjoyed, and get those going again next year to add to the swim season. So that was a lot of fun. We had our first co-ed softball league in probably over 15 years, as best that we can look back. And I played, I know that makes me old, but I played softball at Waterworks right out of high school and started playing in our rec leagues. And we've not had that for like 15+ years. And we were able to get that going. That's one of the first things I said to Tanya when I came on board. I said, we're going to get softball back. And she's like, thank God. I've been wanting to do that for so long, and we've just not been able to do it. No budget, no those things. And so we were able to, we're just now finishing. Several people on council, I think everybody but one sitting on council seat was on a softball team, which was a lot of fun. We had some of these teams. Nobody's pointing at you, Susan. It's we had the police department. I mean, it was a great community league too. We had a team from the police department, a team from the fire department. We had family teams. We had a business that most everybody on his team either currently works or had worked for him in the past. And we've had no issues, no events, no negative events. We actually have people that come just to sit and watch. So you can go down there and there'll be people just with their chairs sitting and watching. So it was a great time. So because of that, they all started saying, hey, could we just maybe tag on and do a second season? And that's going to start. They're getting ready to do the tournament for the first season. So as soon as that's open, we'll have a shorter season, but we will have a second season of that. Tomorrow night, we start our first adult kickball league. And that will be at Waterworks as well on Wednesday nights. So another event for the community. Just come out and enjoy watching people laugh and trip and fall and all those kind of things that happen with that. And show that we're all human. Youth volleyball has begun, and we've got over 50 kids signed up for youth volleyball. Youth basketball signups just started this week. They'll go through the whole month of October, and then practices will start in November for youth basketball. So call, sign up, go online, get your kids signed up for that. We had a young lady come and inquire about starting a youth ballet for mostly, and she wanted to make sure that it was included that you kind of pay as you go. So it's like $20 to do it. But if you can't pay that and you still want to get your kid involved, give us a call, and we're going to get you walk through that. Then because we don't want to turn kids away from the different events that we have. So youth ballet, that's something that we've never had in our program. Jazzercise is probably, if you go by there about any time during the day, it's packed. Jazzercise used to be in Surrey Square. They came to us back in the late spring, actually, and Wendy was just about in tears. She had just gotten notice from the people at Surrey Square saying that they couldn't have their space anymore, that they only had to the end of the month. And she's like, do you guys have anything that we could just use, if nothing else, just temporarily? And I said, absolutely. And we walked her upstairs, showed her the studio room, and they've got 28, 29 classes a week at different times. They just started a 5:30 a.m. class on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, if anybody's so inclined to be up that early. I told her I know the sun's not even up that early. But people are up and they're doing that, and it's a lot of fun, and we see they bring in a lot of people in through our doors. Taekwondo, yoga. I know the law director's already questioned me on this one. Twerk It Out dance. Yeah, you did read that right. It's a dance class, and they learn how to twerk and things like that, but it's done in a good manner. It's not anything bad. And they have a lot of fun in that class. Better Balance, which is kind of a senior kind of directed class that really helps seniors to learn about balance, as well as a little bit of self-defense stuff as well. And then we got some new classes that have just started, kickboxing and interval blast workout. They just recently begun. Some upcoming events. This Saturday, we have during the day, there's the art and on the lawn. That's the other thing I want to say that we're kind of branding, and that was the mayor's idea. We call it the lawn at Victory. And so it's the back part where the pool used to be. So we want to make a distinction between Victory Park, which is the front part. That's our memorial. And we want to pay respect and honor to those that have served and died for not just our city but our country, and we want to pay that honor. But the back part is where the pool was, is where we have events, and the art thing will be there this weekend, and then that night, it's from 6 to 8, we have our final concert in the series, our concert in a park series with Floyd and a Walkman. So grab your cooler, come out, bring your chair, and enjoy some good music. Tuesday the 20th, we are teaming up with the library for a family night. It'll be from 6 to 7. There'll be some storytelling and some button making. On October 8th, we're working with Councilperson Hoover to bring the Hispanic Heritage Month celebration on the lawn as well. And so that's just in the early planning stages, and we're hoping to get that going, and something new for our city to help be a part of and to celebrate. On the October 15th, the REC's going to be hosting a Fall Fest on the lawn at Victory in conjunction with the Historical Home Tour. The tour will start and finish there, and then we'll have some activities there for kids to be able to run, play, and enjoy some games. Then Sunday the 30th, the REC will host a trunk or treat from 6 to 7:30. And so we're asking the administration, we're asking each of you council people, and we're going to go to each department, union, all that, to ask them to come, bring a vehicle, and participate, and make this another new city function that is a safe place for kids to come and get all their candy and their treats in a safe environment, in a fun environment, and be able to meet some of our city employees that are here to serve them. And so we'd encourage you to be a part of that with us. That's on Sunday, October 30th from 6 to 7:30. And then finally, just a little bit about rentals. We do have 3 rooms that we rent, which is the club room at the rec center, the community center cafeteria, and then the Worth room, which is over at Waterworks. We've rented about 100 different parks and shelter events. We've had about 100 room rentals of those 3 rooms, and we've had about 25 different pool rentals between Waterworks and our indoor pool. I say all that because I want you all to have an idea of what's going on, and I want to say that I appreciate the opportunity to serve in the capacity that you allow me to serve in. It's the funnest job besides Santa Claus. It's the funnest job you could have, I think. But it's because of you all. It's because the administration and you all put a budget, and you saw the importance of having a strong recreation in our city, because that helps our families of all ages to want to stay here. And we've had a problem for a lot of years of young families coming in and then moving out. And we want to retain them and keep them here, because all of our services are outstanding services. It's not just the rec, it's fire, police, public works. You know, it's our health department, it's our building department, all those. And we get to, as recreation, work with all those departments in some capacity or other, that we are working together because we got to work together to get something accomplished. So I want to say thank you for that. Next week, I'll probably be meeting with Noah, the Safety Service Director, because it's budget time. And so if there's things that you come to your mind that you would like to see maybe as a part of the rec, let me know that, so we can try to get those things in our budget and see if we can make that happen. But keep your eyes and ears open to the public as well, and what you hear, let us know. I have Tanya and Hillary with me tonight as well, so if you all have any questions at all that you would like to ask, if I can't have it, I'd be glad to let them stand here at the mic and answer a few questions.
Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Guyver, thank you for this presentation. Really nice. You've done a great job since you've been hired as our rec director. My first question is Tuesday, September 20th, with the library, family night with some storytelling, and that is on the lawn as well?
No, that's actually at the rec. I'm sorry, I should have.
At the rec, okay.
No, that is at the rec in our club room.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love the branding, the lawn. That's awesome. That really is neat, man.
You thank the mayor for that.
He's got all kinds of.
Yeah, he's got all
great
kinds of
ideas.
things.
So I just want to also comment how much fun that I've had with this softball season, and it's been great. It's been so much fun, and Tanya's done a great job, and everybody involved. I appreciate it, and it's nice to hear that you guys are going to continue that. So I've really enjoyed it, and I appreciate you guys all for putting it on for us. So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. Anyone else? Thank you, Michael.
Oh, yeah, I had just one. Maybe Tanya or Hillary could come up and talk about the Silver Sneakers program and what that brings to the city.
Man, I can't believe I forgot that. That's one of our newest programs. Come on, Hillary.
We haven't had the Silver Sneakers program
Right.
in the city
we
ever,
tried,
right?
We've tried for months and months and months.
Hi, wait, is this good? Okay. My name is Hillary Williams, and I'm the Recreation Program Director for the Recreation Department. Silver Sneakers, we have just begun offering as of June, I believe, and it allows anyone who has Silver Sneakers through their insurance provider to get a free recreation membership for the year, and it will carry on until they decide that they don't want it. But for now, we've had a great deal of people who have signed up for Silver Sneakers. We hosted a senior day event at the rec back in July as well, and that just highlighted all of the program offerings that we have in Norwood. And we had other businesses and organizations join us for that. And we were also there to help people sign up for Silver Sneakers to get that rolling. And with that, we have also begun offering Renew Active, which is also similar to Silver Sneakers, where anyone who has that provided through their insurance, they can get a free membership with the rec. And I don't know if you guys had any specific questions regarding Silver Sneakers or Renew Active, but I'd be happy to answer them.
Mrs. Hoover?
How does it work? Do they pay the rec, the organization?
Yes. So at the end of each month, we give out membership cards for anyone who's involved with Silver Sneakers. They just get the usual recreation card, and they use that to check in whenever they come in. At the end of the month, I review who all checks in, and I put together a document to then send to both Silver Sneakers and Renew Active, and then they issue out a check at the beginning of the next month.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and then with Renew Active, we actually got, I believe it was an $800 check for just joining.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Mrs. Hoover?
All right, one more. This might be for Mr. Gabbard. The accessible entrance, is that going to be on the south end of the building? Where
So
that
it-
side door is?
You know, where you enter from the street, from Walter, where you enter the parking lot, it'll be right there, that door there.
Okay.
So that'll come out, it'll go towards to Walter and then curve back and then go right on the sidewalk that goes right down the side of the building. It'll come right onto there. Does that make sense? Which is the south, this is the south side of the, so
So the ramp will be along where the parking lot is or where the driveway in is?
where you pull in on the driveway, so that when you come out the door, you'll immediately go to the left like you're going right to the street, to the front, the very front of the building on Walter. It'll go down and curve and come right back down.
Oh, and on the front of the street side of the building?
I don't know. Stop by.
I think yes.
Stop by and I'll show it to you. I'll illustrate to you a little bit better. But that's, and we're gonna widen the driveway entrance, so, you can come in that way. And with that being said, we will, as soon as we get a date on when they're gonna start, we will get information out, because we'll have to close that, and everybody will have to come in and out off of Lawrence, which is a one-way street. And so we're looking in, that's another thing that we're kind of looking into. But so we'll have to put maps up, because a lot of people don't realize that that's a one-way street and you have to go all the way around to come in. So it's going to be a little bit of a nuisance, but it's for a good reason.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hoover. Anyone else? Mr. Kelch?
Talking about the driveway,
Yes.
I love that idea. I pull in there all the time when I come there on accident anyway, so. It just feels natural,
So you always come in the wrong way?
the exit, yes.
All right, that's good. We'll have an officer waiting for you. Thank you all very much. Really do appreciate your support. And like I said, any ideas or suggestions, please don't hesitate. Let us know, so we can hopefully get those kind of things in our budget. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item J1, third reading of ordinance resolutions. Ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into agreement with Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, for the purpose of repairing, replacing street lighting on State Route 562, the Norwood lateral, and authorizing the auditor and treasurer to make appropriate payments in furtherance of this project. Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we have the third reading of this ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Braden to have the third reading. Yes.
I'll second.
Ms. Royce, seconds. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes,
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye, the motion passes. May we have the third reading?
Ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, for the purpose of repairing, replacing street lighting on State Route 562, the Norwood lateral, and authorizing the auditor and treasurer to make appropriate payments in furtherance of this project.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we pass this ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Braden to pass the ordinance. May I have a second? Mrs. Franzen.
I second.
Second by Mrs. Franzen. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the ordinance passes. Moving on to item L, introductory reading of ordinances and resolutions. L1, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety Service to enter into a contract with Burgess Ambulance Sales for the financing and purchase of a 2024 wheeled coach ambulance and declaring an emergency. Mrs. Franzen.
I'll make a motion that we suspend the rules and have all three readings tonight.
Motion by Mrs. Franzen to suspend the rules and have all three readings. May I have a second? Mrs. Hoover.
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Hoover. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. May we have all three readings, please?
Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety Service to enter into a contract with Burgess Ambulance Sales for the financing and purchase of a 2024 wheeled coach ambulance and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety Service to enter into a contract with Burgess Ambulance Sales for the financing and purchase of a 2024 wheeled coach ambulance and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety Service to enter into a contract with Burgess Ambulance Sales for the financing and purchase of a 2024 wheeled coach ambulance and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion that we pass this ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Braden to pass the ordinance. May I have a second? Mr. Kelch.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kelch. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the ordinance passes. Moving on to item L2, ordinance amending Part 11, Planning and Zoning Code related to various chapters to promote clarity and consistency in policy interpretation, application processing, ease of use, readability, dealing with architectural projections, fences, and other related administrative type changes. Mrs. Winterbauer.
Motion to have the first reading?
Motion by Mrs. Winterbauer to have the first reading. Mrs. Franzen.
I second.
Second by Mrs. Franzen. Any discussion? Mrs. Franzen.
I don't know if anyone here can answer this or if there's anyone from the Planning Commission. I had a couple questions, but I don't know.
Mike Skelly.
Hey, okay. Cool. I just had a couple quick questions about some of the stuff that had changed. I know most of this is just kind of administrative stuff. I wasn't sure, under the previous zoning laws, it seemed like for this one, for all of the zoning things, new car lots and used car lots are not an allowable use. Is that consistent with the previous zoning, or is that a new change?
Correct. So just to give you some background, what you see in front is strictly a text amendment. It has
Okay.
nothing to do with map changes. Now, with this particular first update, we were really focusing on kind of baby steps, some minor issues dealing with processing like fences, also with the architectural projections, and those were more related to if we could streamline the process, make it simpler, that if you satisfy X, Y, and Z, then you would have to bypass or at least the BZA and you could just go on and make your application. Your question is valid and we probably may get there, but at least in terms of the steps we're making, at least for the first go round, we just wanted to make it fairly simple. You'll see one of the biggest things related with land uses is consolidating all the uses. So with regards to actual the sale of new vehicles, that's a use that's not expressly identified right now. We do have provisions for used cars, which are considered a Class C retail. And for better or for worse, that particular use is kind of not encouraged or prohibited in those zones.
So any current new car lots would not be affected by this zoning change, or this is not really a change?
Correct, so,
Okay.
and again, you have your law director here, I can explain, so anything that's existing, it's in use right now, would be deemed a legal non-conforming use, so they are allowed to continue on perpetuity.
Cool. I just wanted to make sure that I had a question from someone, a resident about that, so I wanted to follow up. The other question I had was about solar, or there was this thing about alternative energy generation, and this is probably just something that's a holdover from the previous thing. It seemed like it suggested that you couldn't have solar panels in a residential area, but I don't know if the alternative energy generation refers to like just solar panels, or if it's more like you have a solar, plant or wind generation plant or what have you in a residential area.
Correct, yeah, so we recently did have in front of the BZA an application of that sort. Now, from looking at the zoning, there's not a lot of express provisions, criteria for that. So could it be something in the future that the planning commission could entertain? Possibly, so, but that right now, we don't have a lot of provisions dealing with that.
Okay, so private solar panels on a residence is still,
Yeah,
Right.
it's something that the building department has entertained and we see and we do process.
Okay.
I think in the case that we had, it was the oddity of it, or just the typical instance or issue that they were applying for a dimensional variance for.
okay, cool. I just wanted to check since I do have solar panels on my roof currently, and be real awkward.
Yeah, if you got a permit, you're good.
I got a permit.
Good.
It was not a fly-by-night operation, so, cool. Thank you. Just a couple questions I had for that, and anything else, little questions, I'll just email you about, just because I like zoning, because I'm a nerd. So I had like some questions about what had changed versus what I just am misinterpreting. So, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Motion on the floor by Mrs. Winterbauer, second by Mrs. Franzen to have the first reading. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir. All members present, voting aye, the motion passes.
Ordinance amending Part 11, Planning and Zoning Code, relating to various chapters to promote clarity and consistency in policy interpretation, application processing, ease of use, readability, dealing with architectural projections, fences, and other related administrative type changes.
Thank you, Mr. Gears. Moving on to item L3, a resolution celebrating the month of September 15, 2022 to October 15, 2022 as Hispanic Heritage Month in the city of Norwood, Ohio. Mrs. Hoover.
I'd like to suspend the rules and have all three readings, one in its entirety.
Motion by Mrs. Hoover to suspend the rules, have all three readings, one in its entirety. May I have a second? Ms. Royce.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Royce. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir. All members present, voting aye, the motion passes.
A resolution celebrating the month of September 15, 2022 to October 15, 2022 as Hispanic Heritage Month in the city of Norwood, Ohio. Whereas National Hispanic Heritage Month, known as Mes de Herencia Hispania, is celebrated nationwide from September 15th through October 15th each year. The observation started in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under Lyndon B. Johnson and was expanded in 1988 by President Ronald Reagan to cover the month during which it is celebrated today. Understanding that September 15th is significant because it is the anniversary of independence for Latin American countries Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. In addition, Mexico and Chile celebrated their Independence Days on September 16th and 18th, respectively. And whereas the city of Norwood looks forward to celebrating Mes de Herencia Hispania with the greater community to highlight the rich heritage, arts, histories, food, music, and traditions of all 26-plus Latin American nations. While recognizing that these nations are not homogeneous, this month celebrates, honors, and pays tribute to all of their contributions to our city and our society. And whereas in 2022, the vestiges of injustices and inequalities remain evident in the society of the United States. And whereas Latinos are individuals that are descendants from Latin American countries and may speak a variety of different languages and dialects. Hispanics are individuals that speak Spanish and are descendants from Spanish-speaking countries, including Spain. Latinx is the gender-neutral and non-binary term for people of Latin American descent, and we recognize the Latinx identity also encompasses people in Black, African, Asian, Indigenous, and queer communities. And whereas recognizing that Hispanics are the third most common ethnic group in the city of Norwood, and understanding that Hispanics are business owners, entrepreneurs, homeowners and renters, students and neighbors. And whereas the city of Norwood is committed to recognizing Hispanic, Latino, and Latinx culture and heritage as an important part of the city and its strong, inclusive community. And whereas contributions of Latin and Hispanic Americans from all walks of life throughout the history of the United States reflect the greatness of the United States. And whereas many Latin and Hispanic Americans lived, toiled, and died in obscurity, never achieving the recognition those individuals deserved, and yet paved the way for future generations to succeed. And whereas Latin and Hispanic Americans continue to serve the United States at the highest levels of business, government, and the military. And whereas the history of the United States is a story of people regularly affirming high ideals, striving to reach those ideals but often failing, and then struggling to come to terms with the disappointment of that failure before committing to trying again. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Norwood, State of Ohio, that it, 1, acknowledges that all people in the city of Norwood are the recipients of the wealth of history provided by Latin and Hispanic culture, and 2, recognizes the importance of Hispanic Heritage Month as an opportunity to reflect on the complex history of the United States, including the city of Norwood, while remaining hopeful and confident about the path ahead. And 3, acknowledges the significance of Hispanic Heritage Month as an important opportunity to commemorate the tremendous contributions of Latin and Hispanic Americans to the history of the United States, including the city of Norwood. And 4, encourages the celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month to provide a continuing opportunity for all people in the city of Norwood to learn from the past and understand the experiences that have shaped the United States. 6, agrees that while the United States of America began as a divided country, the United States must A, honor the contribution of all pioneers in the United States who have helped to ensure the legacy of the great United States, and B, move forward with purpose, united tirelessly as a nation indivisible with liberty and justice for all, and 6, declares September 15th, 2022 to October 15th, 2022 be Hispanic Heritage Month in Norwood, Ohio, to encourage our residents to learn and celebrate Latin and Hispanic heritage. A resolution celebrating the month of September 15, 2022 to October 15, 2022 as Hispanic Heritage Month in the city of Norwood, Ohio. A resolution celebrating the month of September 15, 2022 to October 15, 2022 as Hispanic Heritage Month in the city of Norwood, Ohio.
Mrs. Hoover.
I'd like to make a motion that we pass the resolution.
Motion by Mrs. Hoover to pass the resolution. Mrs. Winterbauer.
A second?
Second by Mrs. Winterbauer. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye, the resolution passes. Moving on to item L4, ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement with Ford Development for up to $218,200 to replace a failed 36-inch storm sewer on Mentor Avenue from Houston Avenue to its dead end and declaring an emergency. Mrs. Franzen.
I move we suspend the rules and have all 3 readings.
Motion.
Mr. President,
I'm sorry.
I hate to interrupt, but
The Service Safety Director and I would like to request a member of council to make a motion to amend the ordinance. Section 2 of the ordinance, it says out of the general fund, to say out of the general fund and
The O2 street funds.
and the O2 street fund.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we amend the agenda to say that this comes out of the O2 fund and the general fund, please. Amend the ordinance to say that the finance comes from the general fund and the O2 fund, please.
Thank you, Mr. Braden.
Gentlemen.
May I have a second? Mrs. Hoover?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just curious, we voted on an ambulance just a few minutes ago, and this is another significant expense. I have we are in fiscal emergency. I'm sure that this is within our guidelines. I just want to make sure and get an approval, and I'm on board. Does anybody want to comment on that?
Yes, I'd be happy to comment on that. So we did budget for this expenditure. What we didn't do was budget for this expenditure at the level it ultimately came back at. So $120,000 was budgeted for this. We've spent a portion of this year trying to find alternative solutions to this pipe collapsing down on Mentor Avenue, whether it could be lined, whether we had to go and excavate it, put in a new pipe. Ultimately, we found that we weren't able to do this as a lining, so it is something that had to be excavated, redone. As we're getting toward the end of the year and we're looking at that street, if you go down and look at it, Clint has had a couple of plates placed down there, and they are in a straight line, which shows us that it is all because of this pipe. So we do have the funds available. Well, basically the reason that this got onto the agenda so late was we had JMA, our engineering firm, go out, look at it. They said this ought to be done as an emergency. They went out, they collected quotes for us on it. They got 3 back, turned those over to us late Thursday afternoon was when we got those in. We reviewed those, worked with Auditor Stith to figure out where the funding would be available on that. We appreciate his assistance there. Got through that on Friday, got with the law department on Monday. Tim Gary was very, very helpful in helping us get this ordinance drafted and prepared for today. We're appreciative of the law department's help on that and appreciate everyone's consideration to look at this because I know it is a significant expense. Did come onto the agenda late, but it is one that's important. It's one that we've been planning for, hoping to get done, and as we've seen cost increase on a lot of things, this was one of those projects where we had that cost increase.
Follow up.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. So I read it was a 6-inch pipe.
36-inch pipe.
36-inch pipe. Whoa, okay, that's a big difference. So
Yeah, this
how
is
long are we talking? How long are we talking? Do we have a length on that? Just out of curiosity, I'm ready to support this. It's just a pure curiosity. How long we?
It's going to be the, Clint Zimmerman, Superintendent of Public Works.
Thank you, sir.
It's going to be the entirety of the block.
Okay, okay.
So from Houston to the dead end. So what happened was, as Director said, we had this on our radar. We knew it was going to be a problem. We actually budgeted $120,000 for it. As logistical problems and material costs have gone up, obviously that's changed. So where we're at right now is February. The first few pages are just a series of emails. In February, we requested the pipe to be televised so we could see what the interior of the pipe looked like. They went out, and at that point in February, we asked not only televise it, but give us a quote and tell us what's a candidate for relining. We were hoping that might be a way to get it done at a cheaper cost without having to do excavation and whatnot. We were told at that point, okay, we'll get your quote back. Things kind of delayed at that point, waiting to see when quotes would come in. It was televised. We got that footage back around April and May. If you remember, we had some things we had to make some clarifications for the FRP. Some of that funding didn't become available when we thought it was going to be becoming available, and ended up becoming available in later June, early July. During that time, sinkholes continued to develop. So we had a problem, and our problem has gotten continually worse. So June, we reached back out to the company, said, hey, we really need to know, is this a candidate for relining or not? They still didn't get back to us, and they would not put anything in writing. They actually called us and said it's not a candidate. It's a 36-inch corrugated metal pipe. The bottom, the majority of the bottom and the sides are pretty much gone. So no quote was given. The engineers went out, asked for 3 different businesses, Rack and Blower, for development, and Alita Construction to submit cost proposals. They were due Thursday at noon. We got all those back, and of those, Ford was the low bid at $218,200. That's to do a full excavation and replacement of 36-inch pipe, going back in with a high-grade polyethylene pipe. This is not the black polyethylene, this will be the gray polyethylene, so it doesn't have problems with the black stuff. Sometimes when you put the flowable fill in, it wants to float, and it can create a belly at one point, so this is the better quality pipe. The other businesses that quoted was Alita came in at $284,000. Rack and Blower came in at $231,000, so Ford was the lowest and best bid. As we said, it was originally funded at $120,000. A lot of thanks to the auditor's office for helping identify available avenues of funding. So there was another $98,000 to make up. That was available in the Stormwater Management Fund, which this would clearly fall under that. And then the remaining $12,000 will be coming out of O2 Streets, basically for the paving. So it's kind of falling right in the wheelhouse of where it's supposed to be and where the funding's supposed to be coming from. Pipe availability is the big reason why we're here tonight. We got a verbal hold on the pipe right now in the yard. But if we don't get this pipe, with the way logistical problems are right now, there's no chance that there's a chance we might not be able to do this project this year. We have a targeted date of completion of October 25th. That's a pretty tight turnaround. So if we had to wait for 2 more weeks to get council approval, it was tentative as to whether or not we'd be able to have the pipe available. But I would like to say, before anything else goes forward, thank you very much to the auditor's office for helping us out doing the funding. Thank you for amending this, hearing this tonight, and thank you very much to the law department for putting everything together in such a quick amount of time. Any questions?
Mr. Braden.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So, so I'm on board. I'm sure you already know. So we're talking about 6-inch or 36-inch drain pipe.
Correct.
Okay, storm sewer. Storm sewer. That's perfect. So cheaper ain't always better. So I mean, I'm on board. If I think the Ford probably do just fine. So I'm on board. That's fine. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Mr. Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, I just kind of want to ask, dealing with storm sewer stuff, obviously this is an issue. It's an emergency with the sinkholes. But does the funding, any of that, the greater expenditure that we have, kind of affect the funding that we kind of have in place for the Elm Avenue project coming up, which is also going to be pretty big?
No, the funding that was put in for that was modeled at, that is, in its entirety was to come out of O2 Streets. So, and this would not touch that. It would only be $12,000 coming out of O2 Streets. And currently, I believe the O2 Street Fund is setting unencumbered at right around $800,000.
Thank you.
And I would like to, each one of those holes you see that's on those, each one of those sinkholes you see is a separate sinkhole. All in one block, all in one line.
One more comment, Mr. President.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you. Yeah, so we just talked about, we just had a resident last meeting, just talk about our infrastructure. So here's another here's another example of our administration and our public works and our administration. Our infrastructure is being addressed. Here's our proof, and I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Anyone else?
If I
Mr. Powers.
could just make one point of clarification to make everybody feel a little bit better about the budgetary aspect of it. The fire apparatus that was voted on tonight is actually a 2024 purchase. The reason that's here for us in 2022 is because that's how long it takes to get an ambulance when you order one right now. So that's not money that's coming out of the 2022 budget.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Anyone else? Motion on the floor by Mr. Braden, seconded by Mrs. Hoover to amend the ordinance as stated. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. item, now we do.
Now they need to make a motion. We have readings, it's amended.
Now item L4, ordinance authorizing the safety service director to enter into an agreement with Ford Development for up to $218,200 replace a failed 36-inch storm sewer on Mentor Avenue from Houston Avenue to its dead end and declaring an emergency.
As
Mr. Brady.
amended.
As amended.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to pass the ordinance. Have all three readings, and declare an emergency.
Motion by Mr. Braden to suspend the rules and have all three readings.
I did, but then we amended it.
Mr. Kelch.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kelch. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, motion passes.
Ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement with Ford Development for up to $218,200 to replace a failed 36-inch storm sewer on Mentor Avenue from Houston Avenue to its dead end and declaring an emergency as amended. Ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement with Ford Development for up to $218,200 to replace a failed 36-inch storm sewer on Mentor Avenue from Houston Avenue to its dead end and declaring an emergency as amended. Ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement with Ford Development for up to $218,200 to replace a failed 36-inch storm sewer on Mentor Avenue from Houston Avenue to its dead end and declaring an emergency as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Gears. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we pass the ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Braden to pass the ordinance. Mrs. Franson.
I second.
Second by Mrs. Franson. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present voting yes, the ordinance passes. Moving on to item M, administrative reports. Mayor Schneider.
Thank you. It's interesting as you talk about, as we discuss improvements that are going on, and we talk about infrastructure improvements, we're not going to see that. He's talking about the gray PVC or the gray pipe or the black pipe. We're not going to see that. But it's critical. It's a critical need, and it is something that's necessary. There are so many other improvements that are going on in the city that are really important improvements that have to happen that cost money, that are taking taxpayer money. But even the work that we're doing within City Hall, the back auditorium area, we had to do plaster work. That's from damage that occurred years ago when we had internal downspouts that failed, and it took a long time to get those changed out because we were in a financial crunch. During that time, you see crumbling. So there's a lot of work going on. Work going on in the law director's office, work going on in the auditoriums, work that has to happen. But you don't see those things. And for me, the big street projects that we do, you can see them. You can go and drive down them. And when people say, we're not doing streets, you can say, name off 3 streets. Say, go drive up on that street. You're not paying attention. There's all sorts of behind the scenes work going on all the time. And it really takes people like Clint and Noah to recognize those things and to push those agendas forward. With Clint, we've done more infrastructure improvements that are underground than we did in the last 25 years, and they're necessary improvements. We got a couple of big projects coming up. When you look at 561, I think there will be an ordinance on next time about some work on 561 Smith and Carthage, and that's a state route, and working with the county and working with the state to get that done. 562, even just the lights, getting the lights changed out to LEDs. And you wonder why it seems like we're behind the 8 ball. Well, it takes people pushing these processes forward and making to make these things happen. The ADA compliance, that's the first step of that building. That's really the first step of getting it ADA compliant. We've got more steps to come, but it's going to continue. And it's great to hear all the good things that they're doing with the the rec center, the rec. You know, when you talk about the rec, Gabby hit the nail on the head when he talks about a community has so many things to offer. And for so many years, it was almost like we could barely keep our police and fire department, you know, with the right equipment and the right staff, and we just barely had those things, but they were critically important. We all recognize how important, you know, law and crime and all that, and making sure all that's going, and critically important to be able to drive somebody to the hospital when they need an ambulance. But there are so many other things that make Norwood a community that you want to live in, a community that's thriving. And we're hitting on all cylinders now. You know, our rec center it's one of those things where you go like, now we're really starting to thrive. And now we're back to the community that my parents moved our family here in 1972, because that's what Norwood had. We had everything. We had brand new schools. We had this great recreation department. We had this incredible our fire department, we had the first paramedics in Hamilton County that were running on ambulances in the city of Norwood. All these things that made the city of Norwood so great and made people want to stay here and proud of Norwood. All those things are happening right now, and a lot of it's efforts that you guys are making to keep this going and to move us in the right direction. So, you know, now we need a couple of signature events. So we've been doing that, but the International Art Show. Ooh, Norwood's got an international art show. But wouldn't it be great if we could get a couple of signature events, 2 things in the summer that really just sort of put us on the map, that people want to come to. They've done it with athletics for years. We've had different tournaments, wrestling tournaments and band competitions and different things. But we need something that's really Norwood so that we can hang our hat on. And we're working towards some of those things. Some of those things are going to come about. Let's see, the other thing I had on here was pretty impressive was Laura Stevenson, who is the director of the Ohio EPA, was here at City Hall this week. She didn't come because I'm here. She came because Clint Zimmerman is here, and all the good work that Clint and the Public Works Department has been able to do in getting us back on track with our water distribution system. And then taking advantage of the H2O Ohio grant that Governor DeWine put this H2O Ohio water grant in place to get rid of lead lines, right? Big problem up north, everybody knows. We've got an older water system too. We don't have problems. We don't have problems with our water system, but we do have lead lines. And the fact that Clint was able to take advantage of and then was really successful in getting a lot of the homeowners on Regent to change out their water system, change out their line schooling, really made a big difference. And when you have the director of the EPA come to City Hall and they want to talk to Clint and they want to talk to NOAA and they want to talk about the success of that program, there's something to be said for that. And we're little Norwood, and I know we like to think we're big, but we're pretty little when it comes to really the scale of the size of Ohio. But having her here and, you know, getting that was a big boost, I think, for us again. The Board of Health, we had a Board of Health meeting. They continue to bring good programs to the city. They continue to watch the health of our community. They're instituting programs that help our community thrive, and that's great. The flu shots are coming out, and then COVID boosters are still being administered there. So there's a lot of great work being done there. So just keep in mind all the good works that are happening, and you know, there's so much fun. There's so much fun in this. It's almost, I can't attend all the events that are going on and watch every softball game that goes on and all the kickball. But it does sound like fun to go watch that kickball game. I haven't seen a bunch of adults play kickball in a while. Could be interesting. So that's all I had. If you have something you want to throw at me.
Any questions, comments for Mayor Schneider? Mrs. Hoover.
I do have a question. With the recent retirement of Bernie Nagy, sorry, what's the process for filling that position?
Well, I don't know that we will fill the position. It's really not, it's not up to me as the mayor to make that decision. It's the commissioners that are within the Civil Service Commission that make a decision on what support level that they need. Some communities do it different than what we have been doing for the last 30 years. So I think that it's just a matter of looking at how it's been done and what needs to be done in the future, and then what decision they make. But like I said, the Civil Service Commission is not something that I, as the mayor, dictate what they do or do not do. It has more to do with those three people that make a decision and say, we need this level of support, or we don't need that level of support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Brady?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Mayor, you don't have to convince me what a great job you're doing, and Mr. Powers is doing, and Mr. Zimmerman. You guys are doing a great job. But you did hit on something that someone asked. When you said the head of the EPA was here, and it was about, can you touch, so I had a conversation with somebody. Our water is great here, and I know we have old lead lines. Is that a grant that's going to help our homeowners replace those lead lines? Is that what I was hearing there? Can you elaborate on that a little bit for me?
That's what it did. In this particular project, we were replacing the water main. Before we rehabilitated the whole street, curbs and the pavement, we replaced the water main going down. So all new fire hydrants, all new main underground. Again, piping we'll never see. It's expensive. We'll never see it. We don't want to see it. But the service lines, so you go off of the main and you go to the street stop, right? And then from there into the house is an old lead line, because the house is 100 years old, and that's what was put in. So you can go to the homeowner and say, hey, we've got this all opened up. It'll be $8,000. Would you like to get it replaced? And the homeowner says, who's paying the $8,000? You go, well, you will, of course, but it's going to be a major improvement to your line. And they go, I didn't budget $8,000. So the H2O Ohio Fund was there to provide some assistance to those people, those community members that wanted to make that change. I don't know that we'll be able to do that everywhere. I'd like to say that every project we do in the future, and actually Clint sort of planted the seed for some funding that the Ohio EPA and the state will give to help people with that, sort of a grant process that the homeowners would be able to do. But in this instance, he was able to actually secure that grant money so that those people, and I think and Noah can correct me if I'm wrong, there were like 50 homes in that area. There were half of those homes had already had some sort of improvements made to their service tap, and then there were 25 or so that took advantage of it.
That's
that
amazing.
Now have.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So, you think about it, in some of these old homes, you're taking a shower and somebody flushes the toilet downstairs and you got trouble, you're getting scalded, or you can't run your dish. But these new service lines help with that also. So we've got a lot of improvements. She was also very interested in our radio read, the meter system that's going in place right now. They're starting, that process starts, I think, in the next 2 weeks, and by the end of this month, they'll be working on that. And then what we're doing on our water distribution system, the feed, the wells that bring our water in from, they're not really wells, I shouldn't say that, that's not the proper word for it, but the taps and where we get our water from Cincinnati, and then what we're doing with the water towers, which the plan is that the water towers will be totally eliminated from our system. So really, I think they look at what our Public Works Department is doing and say, this is a progressive department that's trying to make a really positive effort in their water distribution system, and we are, and it shows, and yeah.
That's a big deal. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Braden. Anyone else? We'll move on to item N, unfinished business. Any unfinished business this evening? Mrs. Hoover.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to bring people up to date with what's going on with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Board. We did get a lot of really great letters of interest, and those have been distributed to the members. We're just waiting. One of our members just had knee surgery, so we're waiting for her to be back full online before we proceed with those applications and add people to that board. So that's where that is in the process.
Thank you, Mrs. Hoover. Anyone else? We'll move on to item O, new business. Any new business this evening? Mrs. Hoover.
A couple things. Quickly, I am in a really awesome position where I'm able to have a master level social work intern who's going to be working with me on council activities until December. Her name is Melissa. She's amazing. We're going to have her for about 17 hours a week working on council projects, so she's going to be able to help with the DEI stuff, the things that that my good friend here doesn't want to do from our earlier meeting. I'll have her do that.
Calling me out?
Calling you out.
Why you bringing up
Because I'm
old
not
stuff?
playing baseball. So she'll be around, she'll be starting on Monday, and I'll be walking her around to introduce her to some folks, so you'll be seeing her smiling face for the next few months. As the mayor mentioned, this Saturday, we not only have the Off-Pike Market 9 to 1, but there's the International Art Show 9 to 3, which will be really exciting. I'm going to be volunteering for some of that, and I think I'm planning to have city council there with the Montgomery Road plan again. People really like to see that out in the community, and it's really exciting when people take a look at that. Also, Mr. Gabbard mentioned Hispanic Heritage Month Festival I'm working on. I'm really excited. I've gotten connected with some local businesses. Jocelyn Johnston with Norwood Nutrition, Gina with Liberty Tax, Robert James with Boom Fitness. We're all coming together. We're going to put on a small Hispanic Heritage Festival on Saturday, October the 8th from 2 to 6. We're going to have a band, we're going to have music, we're going to have dancing with some dance instruction. I know a little bit of salsa, that's scary. There'll be a food truck. It's going to be really exciting. And we have so many different countries represented in the city of Norwood. Peru, Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua. So there'll be a real taste of all of that. So more will come on that later. But and if anyone in the community is interested in participating, please reach out to me. We're still planning, but we're planning. It's coming together pretty quickly. And that's it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mrs. Hoover. Anyone else? Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Hoover, I have to correct you. I said that I was on the fence about that until I heard all of it.
No. I'm sorry, sir. I just meant the it's on my
Okay,
list.
something different.
Something different.
Okay,
I
all
said,
right.
do you want to
My
call?
apologies.
And you're like, no, you can call.
I can be on the fence.
Habitat for Humanity. That's
Okay.
what it was.
Oh, okay.
I said, do you want to call? And you're like, someone could call.
You're still bringing up old stuff.
So we're gonna have my lovely intern help with that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Mrs. Franzen?
So I wanted to give a quick update. I've got a survey made up for the Parks Master Plan, so I'm going to get that distributed by the end of the week. I'm just getting some input from some of the folks that came to the last Parks meeting. So the idea is just to see what people are using in the parks, what people want to see in our parks, and what parks people think need the most love, care, and attention currently. So this is separate from the recreation. I wanted to keep our focus relatively narrow and just look at our parks, since Mr. Gavitter is doing great things with recreation. So I will be sending that out to all of us council persons and some of the administration people, and I would truly appreciate just your help just trying to distribute it far and wide. It is going to be a link to a survey that is 10 questions long. I'm sure we can all take a little bit of time to get that filled out, and my hope is have it open for a month, try to get at least 300 responses from the widest variety of people that we can, and see what people want in our parks and go from there. The next step after that would be determining which parks seem like most people want the most out of, what people actually want to see, and then pricing that stuff out, trying to figure out, okay, what can we actually afford? What are some places that we can get money for that potentially? But that'll be the next step. The hope is, I'm focusing on this, get this presented to all of us in the committee as a whole here before Thanksgiving is my plan. Because the holidays take up everyone's time, and I don't want to interfere with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Franzen. Anyone else? Ms. Joyce?
I just have one thing. I'm going to do, well, not me. I got Housing Opportunities Made Equal. Home is the group. They're going to do a tenant landlord law rights class on October 12th. It's going to be at the community center down in the basement cafeteria room. It's going to start at 6 and possibly go to 8:30. But if you're a landlord or a tenant in Norwood, I would love for everyone to attend, because I think we all work better when we know more. So
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Then we'll move on to item P1, communications. P1, Victor Schneider, Mayor, regarding Mayor's Court fines, August 2022.
Dear Mr. President and council members, enclosed, please find the report for Norwood Mayor's Court for the month of August 2022. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Victor Schneider, Mayor, City of Norwood.
Mr. Kelch.
Motion to receive and file the letter as read.
Motion, Mr. Kelch, to receive and file a letter. Mr. Braden.
Second.
Second by Mr. Braden. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item P2.
Dear Mr. President and members of Norwood City Council, I respectfully request that the council vote to go into executive session to discuss the status of pending litigation at this evening's meeting. Respectfully submitted, Keith D. Moore, Law Director.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss pending litigation
And receive and file the letter.
and
as well.
receive and file the letter.
Motion by
Please.
Mr. Braden to receive and file the letter and to go into executive session. May I have a second? Mr. Kelch.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kelch. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye. The motion passes. We are in executive session 8:51. And we're out of executive session at 9:32. Moving on to item Q, excuse absent members. May I have a motion to excuse the absent member? Mrs. Hoover?
I'd like to make a motion to excuse the absent member.
Motion by Mrs. Hoover. May I have a second? Ms. Royce?
A second?
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes,
All
sir.
members present, voting aye. The motion passes. May I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to adjourn.
May I have a second? Ms. Royce?
A second?
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye. Motion passes. We're adjourned.